There we go. Well, welcome everyone. Looks like we have a smaller group tonight. Charlie just made me host here. He's in Alaska, and they're just about to go to dinner. It's an hour earlier there, so it's just me tonight. But this is an open forum, so hope you guys have lots of questions. Otherwise, I can try to find some videos to show. But otherwise, this is all for you guys. Questions and discussion. But I'll look and see if I see any new names here.
Can you speak up a little?
Yeah, I'll turn up my volume all the way up. You can hear me. Turn your volume up if you're having a hard time hearing. Mine's all the way up. It's like you froze up, Marcia.
Now you're frozen.
Yeah, you froze. I think on your end. How's everyone doing tonight?
Okay. Good. How are you, Scott?
Oh, good. Hi, Velvet.
I'm just making dinner.
Sounds good. What are you making?
Mac and cheese and salad. We're making, like, you roast butternut squash and cauliflower and bell pepper and onion and garlic, and then you blend it up and with nutritional yeast and seasoning, and it makes mac and cheese.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yes, my daughter found it on TikTok and sent it to me.
YouTube Shorts.
Oh, YouTube Shorts.
I'll have to.
And so I was like, okay, we can make this one together.
Awesome.
It's nice when they get involved and actually send me things.
Yeah, they're probably more excited to eat it when they're involved in it.
Exactly.
Do we have any new? I see Kristen's here today. She's been gone a few weeks.
Yeah, hey there.
How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you for asking. I bought a house here in Eugene.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, so and I had to go back and work in Boise for like 10 days. And so between moving and getting my furniture and unpacking and working, it's been chaos. So yeah. But it's nice to be back and kind of getting back into normal routine.
Oh, good. Are you any job prospects in Eugene, or?
You know, I haven't, to be honest, because of buying this house, and I closed on it at the end of June, early July, and doing lots of work on it, and then plus driving back and forth to Boise and working a lot there. It's not even on my radar yet. Once I get a little more settled, then I'll maybe start pursuing more local opportunities. So yeah, so we'll see. And maybe something like I've told you before, maybe something in lifestyle medicine. So
yeah,
who knows?
Well,
yeah.
There might be some people in the class that don't know you. Want to just to introduce?
Oh, sure. Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Kristen Linsmeyer. I moved here a couple months ago from Boise, Idaho. And I just lived in some short-term rentals at first while I was looking for more permanent housing. And I bought a home on a half acre here in Eugene, and lots of garden space for all my veggies. I'm a cardiologist. And I also am board certified in lifestyle medicine. And so I'm really getting a lot out of these classes. And I want to continue to participate in this, in our community group here, and eventually, hopefully attend some of the potlucks and more of the walks and all of the other activities that are planned. And like I've told Scott and Charlie in the past, and Eric, that, thank you, John, that my goal, my dream would be really to do a practice that's primarily in lifestyle medicine rather than just in cardiology, or somehow combining the two. So anyway, we'll see if I can make that happen at some point.
Sounds great. Yeah. Well, we missed you out at the walk.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I heard it got pretty hot, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty hot. We're gonna do it at 10 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
instead of 11 this next
Yeah.
time. So,
Yeah,
we really like the track. There's not much shade there, but we don't have to worry about all the electric bikes and scooters.
yeah, the cycle, right, right. Yeah,
It's good.
no, that's smart.
Then for anyone that didn't see too, Charlie is up in Alaska this week, so he'll be back next week. But so it's just open forum tonight. So does it? I guess let's scroll through. Is there anybody here that's new, that's here for the first time? It's like I recognize most of the names here so far. I see Lisa's here too. How's your cardiothoracic surgery rotation going? Day 2.
Hi, good. I just got home and I'm making some dinner. But yeah, today was my first day in the clinic part of cardiothoracic surgery, which I like a little bit better than the OR, because I think clinic is my thing. But it's interesting because at this point, the patients, their options are different types of surgeries, I suppose, versus lifestyle factors. So obviously they would do better with both. So I'm just learning the other side of things here.
Sounds great. And next, I kind of Velvet saw that want to share the recipe maybe on the in the Facebook group. Oh, it looks like Velvet's saying or asking if you're on the Facebook group because you can post the recipe there. She was talking about the mac and cheese she's making for dinner tonight. Plant-based mac and cheese, of course.
Yes, yes.
Anyone have any questions? Anything you want to share? Stories, successes, challenges, anything?
So I thought I would share something. I was having issues with my period and I went to the doctors and sorry, you guys are all, some of you doctors, you've got some women in here. I don't know if there's any younger women, but anyway, she was saying possibly endometriosis. And I don't know if I've said this in the past, but she was trying to put me on a pill that basically was greens in a pill. Like it's called DIM. And I said, no, I'll just eat more greens. I'll just eat more broccoli and like kale and spinach and stuff. And it actually helps so much. And I'm not having as much pain each month. And my legs were hurting so bad I was having to take ibuprofen. And it was awful for at least 1 to 2 days a month. And now I'm not having that like that. So I just thought I'd share that.
That's great. And if you don't know about the book, Your Body in Balance by Dr. Neil Barnard, that's a good one. I've read that one. And he talks a lot about different hormonal things, including endometriosis and menopause and other thyroid and other basically all the different hormones in the body and how our diet and lifestyle can influence those.
I will check it out.
Your Body in Balance. Neil Barnard.
Okay.
Let's see, Dave and Sherry. Okay, looks like you got your hands up.
Well, we just got back from a 2-week road trip and understand what food desert is now. We were in Yellowstone area and then going through Montana, and that's big country. And yeah, hard to find anything plant-based or vegan in those areas. I lost 2 pounds.
Did you have to skip some meals or what did you do?
Yeah.
We took this one dish that Sheree made and it was great the first night, but after the third night, I didn't want to see it again.
We got to figure out how to make travel food that's more than just one meal, and yeah, it was an experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, people that live in those areas, you just would have to go to the store and yeah, there wasn't much there.
wow. Yeah. You had a good trip overall?
It was
Oh, yeah.
great. It was awesome. So pretty. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. You done?
I'm done.
Anybody else have a question?
Hey, Scott, I have a question. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So my brother-in-law had texted me recently, and I can tell you what I told him, but I'd love to hear what you would say. So he went to see his doctor recently, and his cholesterol is a little high. He's already a plant-based eater. But like many of us, just because you don't eat meat or animal-based products doesn't mean you're always eating healthy, because as we all know, you can eat a lot of processed food, and that's not necessarily healthy. And so so he said his doctor told him to in order to lower his cholesterol, he could, and also my brother-in-law could probably lose a few pounds also just to be healthier. So he told him to eat fewer carbs. And he said, what do you think about that? And he also clarified, he's like, it's probably not a bad idea to eat fewer carbs. But what I told him is that plant-based eating, vegetables and fruits, they have a ton of carbs in them. But they're all complex carbs. And I said, so if he told you to cut down on carbs, like cutting down on eating fruits and vegetables is not the answer. It's probably more the simple processed carbs that you could cut down on. And by doing that, you lose some weight, you lose some of the fat that gets distributed in your organs, like your liver, that can lead to increased cholesterol production. And so I said, so the short answer is that not all carbs are the same, obviously. And those carbs that are in veggies are really good carbs for you, and they're not going to raise your cholesterol. And so I kind of gave them all of this info, but I would just love to hear what you would tell your patient if they asked you that same question.
Yeah, what I usually say is, if they told me, oh, I heard I should cut down on carbs, I would ask, the first question I'd ask them is, well, what does that mean? What does a carbohydrate mean to you? Give me examples of foods that are carbohydrates, because I try to go back to, we eat food, we don't eat macronutrients, we don't eat just carbs, fat, and protein. So it's like, what do you mean by a carbohydrate? So yeah, I'm sure that hopefully we'd come to that same conclusion, that you want to avoid the processed carbohydrates, the processed foods, the simple sugars and things like that. And then as far as even refined sugars, even in flours, they actually tend to raise triglycerides, not necessarily total cholesterol or LDL cholesterol, but we know that triglycerides, when they're elevated because of things like white sugar, white flour, oils, other fats, raise triglycerides too. And the simple carbohydrates, would be one of those things that would raise triglycerides. We know that triglycerides actually force the bad cholesterol into the artery walls, and so it's not that it would, a simple sugar or a simple white sugar or flour would raise your total cholesterol or your LDL cholesterol, but it would increase your risk for heart disease, because it would, triglycerides themselves have some bad effects, and more specifically, it's driving the bad cholesterol, oxidized cholesterol, into the artery walls. And so, but I would just tell them, the main way to get your cholesterol down is to avoid the saturated fat, the animal fats and oils and things like that. But you're also wanting to reduce your simple, carbohydrates, your processed foods, and that's really the key. And I would say the same thing. You want to embrace the whole plant foods, but I guess I try to go back to, trying to teach my patients to speak the language of food, and what foods should I eat, rather than what are the proteins I want to eat, what are the carbohydrates I want to eat, what are the fats that I want to eat, instead of choosing macronutrients,
right,
foods for macronutrients. No, let's choose the healthiest foods. What are the best food choices that we want to eat?
And that's why I thought it was an interesting recommendation, because he specifically targeted carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned, okay, well, get rid of the processed foods, which contain a lot of the simple and very highly processed carbohydrates. You don't want those. But and he already doesn't eat animal products, so he doesn't get cholesterol really in his diet. Because that only comes from animal-based products. And so that's why I was like, why did he mention carbs, you know, specifically? So, which again, I think we all, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but probably need to be careful of the processed foods that we eat, even if they are, you know, they say that they're vegan or vegetarian. So yeah. Okay, thanks, Scott.
And also that, you know, people, and I'm always telling patients all the time that, you know, everyone has a different cholesterol. Genetically, everyone has different cholesterol. I mean, I had patients that were in the 300s on their total cholesterol, and they're completely plant-based, and now they're in the 200s. So they're still high, but they dropped it 100 points, but they're still high. And so I try to get them not to worry about that too much, because you can take a statin and get it lower if you want to take a statin, but otherwise, let's just look at all the risk factors for heart disease. It's not just what the cholesterol is, it's whether you smoke or not, whether you exercise or not, how much stress you have in your life, how much inflammation is in your body, whether you're eating those processed foods or oils, even though those won't necessarily directly raise or lower your cholesterol, those specifically, they're still causing inflammation. So we want to do everything we can to reduce your risk of all of the aspects of heart disease, not just what their actual cholesterol is. So I sometimes have to talk patients away from the ledge as far as, they're still worried about their number too much. And it's like, well, you can only control the number so much outside of medication and diet. And so let's just work on all the other aspects of what causes things like heart attacks and strokes, and of course all the other chronic diseases we talk about in this class. I think Ken you have your hand up, Ken. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have 3 doctors, and that doesn't count my PA. My doctors always tell me I need to, cut the carbs, don't eat carbs. And I don't say anything because there's no use to discuss it with those guys. Well, I'm going to back up. My urologist is actually supportive of whatever I choose to eat, and he likes to talk about it a little bit. But I have a wonderful gastro doctor, and he told me to quit eating potatoes. And he said, they're just horrible. They're just the worst carbohydrate there is. So I just, when anybody says anything like this, and Kristen, I don't know if you've seen her or not, but every once in a while, I just got to go see that Jeff Novak video about carbs. There's nobody explains it like he does. Potatoes, you take a potato and you cut it into strips and you fry it in vegetable oil, and now it's a terrible carb. So I eat a lot of potatoes. Well, I don't eat a lot of potatoes. I don't feel guilty eating whole potatoes. I eat, Charlie, with Charlie's blessing, I do eat a lot of oatgroats. And I sure as heck hope that's not raising my cholesterol, because all the cereal companies that sell sugary cereal say that oats in their cereals lowers cholesterol, lowers risk of heart disease. So I'm just hoping you guys are always right. I feel good, guys. I feel good.
Yeah, all you have to do, Ken, is just whenever, it sounds like you're already there, but whenever you hear those comments, cut the carbs or don't eat potatoes, or all that they're revealing to you is showing you that they don't know anything about nutrition. So it's not their fault. They didn't learn it in medical school. I didn't learn it in PA school. It's just Charlie didn't learn it in his training. You just have to trust in, all the people that we follow, and Jeff Novick, and he's a dietitian, and all the dietitians in our Eugene plant-based providers, and all the science, and it's just, they're just misinformed. So you might as well, you should, I guess, try not to even, I guess if I were you, I just wouldn't talk about food and nutrition with your doctor, because you just know they're not going to be, unless they're willing to be educated by you. You're the more qualified person. You've been to so many of these classes, you know way more about nutrition than any of the doctors that you see. So you got to keep that in mind.
I won't tell them that.
You don't have to tell them that, but just
don't
worry about what they say.
To my OUI urologist credit, I got to say he's he's the one that when I first told him I was, my other doctor said I need to eat 3 ounces of chicken or fish a day. He said, I can't give you any advice because I don't have any training in nutrition, but that was back, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Now he'll sit down at the computer and look things up to just chat with me a little bit about it. So pretty impressed with him regarding his open-mindedness. Thanks, everybody, for listening to me.
And one question or comment in the chat I wanted to address. Someone was asking, I thought there was good cholesterol and bad cholesterol, and that's true. So the good cholesterol is called the HDL, high density lipoprotein. And then there's the bad cholesterol, which is the LDL and the low density lipoprotein. And then we have total cholesterol. And we also have something called triglycerides, which are kind of just the neutral fats that float around. And so that's, if you have any more question about that, just unmute yourself and ask me. But yeah, the point of that conversation was just earlier was just to, we do tend to focus on numbers a little bit too much when it comes to cholesterol, and it's really what are all the risk factors for heart disease, cardiovascular disease that's important. And you can go back and watch the class we did on heart disease several weeks back if you have more questions about that stuff, if you want more education about that.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is,
Go ahead.
hi, this is Adri. And speaking of cereals, I wanted to know what you think about grape nuts. It does not have sugar added to it. It says whole grain wheat flour, malted barley flour, salt, and dried yeast. That's it.
Yeah.
But please tell me it qualifies as good cereal, because that's my go-to breakfast with lots of strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, banana, whatever fruit I can find. And I put a lot on there, and some cinnamon and some flax seeds, and some walnuts chopped up. But is the cereal itself okay?
Yeah, so we consider those foods as kind of yellow lights when we have our traffic light system. Green light means eat as much as you want. Yellow light means kind of in moderation or caution. And then red light, you try to avoid. Things like processed cereals, even though they're whole grain and grape nuts isn't too bad. I can talk to you about the 5-to-1 rule on fiber. I'm familiar with grape nuts. And so it's, it is processed. So because it is a processed food, it's not going to get a green light, but we would kind of put it in a kind of in the yellow light category, because you'd be better off eating something like oat groats, which is the whole oats, or steel cut oats, or even rolled oats. Those would be slightly better because it's the whole grain. It hasn't been processed in any way other than, you take an oat groat and chop it up with a steel blade, you got steel cut oats. And then you can take a oat groat or a steel cut oat and roll it under a big, smash it basically. And now you have a rolled oat, the little flat oat. It's still a complete whole grain, unprocessed, except for you ran it through a machine. That's about it. It hasn't had any of the fiber taken out or anything added to it. Something like grape nuts has had a lot of the fiber.
So it's
A lot of the fiber stripped out, and then sometimes things are added in. In that case, there's no sugar added in.
So it sounds like you're saying that steel cut oats would be healthier.
Yeah, I was trying to finish my explanation there for you. So yeah.
Sorry, my phone, it keeps cutting out, so I can't hear when you're done talking.
Okay. Yeah, so steel cut oats would be better, but if you're not ready to go from bacon, eggs, and sausage and Lucky Charms cereal straight to something like oat groats with fruit, then something like grape nuts with everything you described would be kind of a good transition food. Not a bad thing, just maybe not the healthiest endpoint.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome. Are you new to the classes?
I've been sporadically coming to the classes, and I came home special tonight to tune in, and I'm really glad to hear you and really appreciate you doing this.
You're welcome. So you're familiar with the website and where all the recorded classes are? If you're
Yes, yes, I am.
Great. Welcome.
Thanks.
Well, I was gonna say something about cereal. A better transition cereal would be mini wheats, shredded wheat. It's totally, the only ingredient is whole wheat. And I use it when I'm in a hurry. It's better than not eating. And I like the person before me, I put on all kinds of stuff. Some nuts and a lot of fruits. But that's just another choice. I love grape nuts, and I was really disappointed that I shouldn't eat it. But the mini wheats are great, and man, are they really a yellow food just because they're processed a little bit to go into strings instead of whole grains?
Yeah, because you wouldn't find that in nature, right? So you wouldn't find shredded wheat growing in a field, but you would find a wheat berry growing in a field, or oat groat, or a barley grain, or a millet grain would be growing in a field, whereas shredded wheat doesn't grow in a field. It's pretty darn good food. It's if it's the 5-to-1 rule, which is basically what you want is you want the number of carbohydrates per serving, and you look at the number of grams of fiber per serving. You want the carbohydrate to be no more than 5 times the number of grams of fiber. So if something has, say, 20 grams of carbohydrate in a serving, you would want the fiber to be at least 4 grams of fiber or more to get to that 5-to-1 rule. So I know grape nuts, when I looked at a box, I believe it's like 7-to-1, so it's not too bad. So there's 1 gram of fiber for every 7 grams of carbohydrate, which isn't too bad. 5-to-1 is the best. And I think the only cereal that meets that is like Uncle Sam's cereal, I think, has the 5-to-1 rule. And the other way you can look at it is if it has at least 4 or 5 grams of fiber per serving on the label, that's pretty decent. It's a good sign that it's a whole grain. And I'll talk about that in more detail when we do the food label reading class coming up in a month or 2. You can watch the one from last year if you want to see that sooner. I'm putting in the chat, someone was asking about the book I was talking about. It's called Your Body in Balance by Dr. Neil Barnard. When Velvet was talking about endometriosis and some hormonal things. All right, next question, any questions? I have videos I can show if no one has questions or comments or anything they want to share. This is your open forum, so I try to leave it because Charlie and I always show so many videos and lectures and PowerPoints and things. I want to have these classes so that you guys can ask your questions, but there's nothing else I can show videos.
Is Velvet still on?
What's that?
Is Velvet still on?
Let's see. Let's scroll through here. Yeah, she's still there. She's cooking dinner though, so she's probably.
Sure. I'm working in the kitchen too, but I just want to tell her, in this hot weather, my bananas are turning brown pretty fast. So I'm following her lead and wrapping them in parchment paper, freezing them, and having smoothies.
Yeah, Beth raised your hand. You can. I have a couple questions in the chat, but go, Beth. You're up.
Okay, I just wondered, you know how every time you have some alcohol, some brain cells die, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but it depends on how much you have, but alcohol is
Okay.
definitely a carcinogen.
Right, it is a carcinogen. I just wondered if brain cells regrow.
Our neuropathy, we have neuroplasticity, and so we can, but I guess I don't know that, you know, certain, what amount of alcohol causes death of brain cells. I don't know anything about that, but I just know that
Okay.
it's better to avoid alcohol altogether. There seems to be no, the more we study it, there seems to be no safe amount, really. I mean, all we can really look at is the, you know, the blue zone populations do tend to drink 1 or 2 alcoholic beverages a day. So they're the longest lived, healthiest populations, but we don't think it's necessarily the alcohol. It seems to be more the, like red wine, for example, it's the resveratrol that's in the grape that brings the health benefits, not the alcohol itself. And so, so we have better science on that. And things like breast cancer, we know that even 1 alcoholic beverage a day increases the risk of breast cancer and recurrence of breast cancer in women. So, you know, the science is kind of pointing to there's probably no safe amount of alcohol, but in general, the preponderance of the evidence is like, well, as long as it's no more than 1 or 2 drinks a day, probably okay when we look at population studies, but yeah, it's definitely still being researched a lot.
Well, especially men need to be worried about that fatty liver, because nowadays liver cirrhosis is more linked to fatty liver from just being overweight and eating the wrong things than it is to alcohol. So, you know, some people might get away with drinking 1 or 2 drinks a day, but a lot of us need to really analyze what our bodies are doing. And then Charlie said 3 weeks ago something about it'd be better if you want to drink wine to drink alcohol-free wine. And that just sounds like grape juice to me. Is there such a thing as alcohol-free wine?
I imagine, but you might as well just eat. The healthiest way to get the resveratrol is just eat the grapes.
Eat the grapes.
Yeah, there you go.
They're pretty good.
Someone had a question about nail fungus. That's basically just an infection of, fungus gets embedded in the nail bed, and then it's considered a cosmetic infection. It's not dangerous to health in any way, but there's, you know, lots of different treatments for it. Some of them have good evidence, some don't. You know, there's all the different topicals, and there's oral antifungals and things like that, but it often comes back. Sometimes a lot of the treatments, it goes away about 80% of the time, but it comes back 50% of the time. So it's kind of a coin flip, but some you can talk to your provider about. But I don't know of any nutrition studies regarding nail fungus at all. Something you could do a search on nutrition facts, but I don't think so. And then another question here about iron needs. So you get all the iron you need you can get from whole plant foods. So foods that are highest in iron would be your dark green leafy vegetables, beans, nuts and seeds, whole grains. They all have iron in them, and it's the non-heme iron, so which is the best kind of iron to get. So non-heme iron is what you get in from plant foods, and then heme iron is the blood iron. Heme iron is from animal products. And so the kind of the beauty of the non-heme iron is, you know, whole plant foods also have vitamin C in them, and vitamin C, you may or may not know, actually enhances absorption of iron. And so what's beautiful about plant-based iron is that when your body needs more iron, it takes it up. And when you don't need it, you don't absorb it. So you absorb what you need. When it comes to heme iron, your body absorbs it so easily that you actually take it in even when you don't need it. And so one thing that we know is that heme iron is a pro-oxidant, so it causes inflammation. And a lot of times when we analyze cancerous tumors, a lot of them are full of heme iron. And so it's not good to have too much iron. And so the whole idea behind iron is that you want to have just enough for your bodily functions, making red blood cells and things like that, so that you're not anemic. have just enough iron, not have a overabundance of iron storage. You just want to have just enough iron to make your red blood cells, and you want to have no more than that. So that's why the non-heme iron is so great in that sense. And there's some chats going on in there about suggestions for taking food on when you're out on the road traveling. And we can have a discussion, but let me share my screen real quick, because I want to show you on the class website. I have an article about that. You guys have seen it. If you go into resources, click on the resources section right here, plant-based meal ideas for traveling. If you click on that, there's this whole article here on tips for how to eat whole food plant-based on the road. Different levels of it. So lots of great tips and ideas. But yeah, I'd love for you guys to share some of your go-to meals and foods when you're traveling. I know for me, like when we take a airplane, I just definitely pack nuts, like nuts and raisins and stuff, and then I drink a lot of water, because a lot of times I'm not going to get anything that's going to be very good at the airport. Sometimes you can find something, but a lot of times you don't have the best options available to you. So I can always get by, easily skip a meal. I can get by with nuts and dried fruit and stuff like that, and drinking lots of water. But that's not, for the main part of the traveling. Once you get somewhere, then there's different things like you have your look. You can search for vegan restaurants. You can also use Happy Cow app will show you different places, vegan places that you can go to. I know when we're traveling internationally, most countries actually have a lot more. Actually, even some other parts of the country have a lot more plant-based options than we have here. So, been pleasantly surprised when I've been traveling. Anyone else have ideas?
Hey, Scott, I just thought I'd share kind of a funny story regarding eating plant-based while traveling. I was in Africa and with a bunch of friends, and there were a number of plant-based eaters, and they do eat a lot of plants, a lot of vegetables and things like that, but they do, they eat goat and they eat cow, and they're that's a big staple in their diet. And so my friends and I packed bags of those Madras lentils. You used to be able to get, and maybe you still can get them at Costco. You get the big box of them. They're not that healthy. There's a lot of salt in them. There's I think it's very salty, and I don't know how much sugar. It's probably not that healthy for you. But we would get rice also, and make rice and then put the Madras lentils on top. And I was so sick of Madras lentils by the end of that trip. And there were plenty of times when we were able to order at the restaurants or the lodges where we were staying and that sort of thing. And we were able to eat plant-based, but it's kind of a funny story. Like, we each packed probably 6 to 10 bags of those in our suitcase, like we were going to starve or something.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, when we were in the United Kingdom last summer, we couldn't believe how many vegan restaurants there were. And then even in when you come up off the tube stops, which is their subway system there, come up off the tube stops, even they always had little almost like little convenience store, little stands there with snacks and food there. And I was surprised they always had they had these vegan wraps and stuff. So it was just basically a whole wheat tortilla with some hummus and sprouts and cucumber and a bunch of other veggies and avocado, and just these vegan great wraps that were there you could always get. And it was so easy just traveling around over in the United Kingdom. So we were pleasantly surprised by that.
What is those lentils?
Yeah, she's talking about Madras lentils. I know they have some of that stuff at, I think I've seen that at Costco too. They tend to add a lot of salt and a lot of oil, and some of those convenience foods that are vegan or plant-based. So that's one of the, kind of what she's saying. It's probably, not the healthiest thing, but if you're on the road and it's something you can do in a pinch, it's still better than eating you know, Carl's Jr. bacon double cheeseburgers, obviously.
Yeah, I used to get the Madras lentils, but then I read on the package, it says contains milk.
That's
Yeah. So
That's weird.
I didn't see it in the ingredients necessarily, but it has a statement on there.
Your ideas. Someone in class was asking about how to deal with cravings and overeating and kind of the pigging out, so to speak, and that's going to be a work in progress for sure, because when a lot of us tend to use food as a drug, basically emotional support. You know, we have a good day, a stressful day, we come home, we basically are looking for something to make us feel good, and you know, unfortunately, foods that are really high in calorie density, lots of calories per bite, foods that are high in sugar, salt, and fat, highly processed, not foods that are known in nature, they really flood our brains with dopamine. So it's like a drug. We feel good, and so part of the process is, you know, if you have a lot of food issues and you have a hard time and you feel like you're using food as a drug, then that's the more important, you know, all the more important that you go 100% whole food plant-based as soon as you can. And you know, once you get through the first 3 to 5 weeks, a lot of the physical cravings go away, but you'll still have to work on the reasons for, you know, why you're craving those unhealthy foods to use as a drug, basically. And so yeah, that's where you get into things like you know, journaling and mindfulness, and maybe even some counseling and things like that to really deal with the reasons that you're feeling those cravings and why you're reaching for some of those food choices to make you feel better. Because you know, food is for nourishment and disease reversal, disease prevention, to nourish us, to give us energy. It's not supposed to be something that's like a drug that's making us kind of cover up or numb our pain to something else in our lives. And so it's a long process to get through that. And I do have a class on food addiction and behavior change from back in February. So if you want to check that out a little bit more detail, go back to the class archives into February and you'll see that class there. Like Lisa posted oatmeal bars for breakfast on the go. She put a link to that recipe in the chat. If no one has questions right now, I have a video about protein I can show. I've shown it, I think I showed it once last year. It's through Plantrition Project. So it's not on the internet, it's just one that I have saved on my computer. I'm a Plantrition provider, member of that group, so I have access to some of these educational videos. So it's a little 10-minute video on protein if you guys want to watch it. Otherwise, if you have more questions, that takes precedence.
Hey guys, I just wanted, oh, I can't show you. It's like,
You can see it.
can you see it a little bit? It looks like mac and cheese.
Yummy.
It tastes pretty good too.
What's that with it?
Salad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, always salad or like steamed veggies or roasted veggies or something.
What's in, I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but what's in your mac and cheese?
Butternut squash, bell pepper, onion, cauliflower. I think I was supposed to put garlic in there and I forgot it. And you roast all those, and then nutritional yeast, some hot sauce, tahini, which I thought was interesting in this one. And a little bit of salt.
Do you use a whole wheat pasta?
Usually this one is not because I couldn't find it at the store. The store that I go to stopped selling it, and I usually order it online, but I didn't have time this time. So. Okay, guys.
For sure.
Where did you find the recipe?
It's by Plant You. And my daughter found it on YouTube, but I will post it on Facebook so you guys can have it.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, Scott, while we're talking about using computers to find out all the information and menus. So when I go over to that link, I've never done this before. So I go over to this link that Lisa posted about the breakfast bars.
Mhm.
And I click on it. Oh, there they are. Now, how do I? Oh, it came on. Are you still there?
Yeah, we're still there.
I guess I can just save this. I was going to ask how to save the link, but now I can just save the recipe. It's here.
And you can also right click on it and copy that link, and then as long as you paste it into something before you shut your computer down.
Oh, that was the question, was do I need to paste it onto a document? Thank you.
Someone asked about having everyone share their favorite dressing recipes. My favorite one is really simple. It's called 3-2-1. So it's 3 parts balsamic vinegar, 2 parts mustard, and 1 part maple syrup. So it's so I have like a container, glass container, and I can shake it and stuff. So I put, I do it about, essentially about a third to a half of a little bit more than a half of the balsamic vinegar, and then 2 parts of the mustard, and then 1 part the maple syrup. That's the smallest part. And I shake that up, and that's what I use for my dressings. And it's oil free that way. And also on the class website, I have a whole list of recipes for salad dressings, and they're all oil free, except I think there's 2 Asian ones on there, recipes that do have a little bit of oil, but the other, I think there's 34 of them, and I think, yeah, the other 32 are all oil-free salad dressing recipes. Yeah, it seems like a lot of mustard, but you need it to balance out the balsamic vinegar. And mustard is really, if you look at the ingredients list of mustard, it's just mustard seed and vinegar. It's a little bit of yellow dye or something in there, but pretty basic. I get the big 3-pack of mustard at a 2-pack of mustard at Costco. Just regular old mustard, French's mustard or whatever. And then I get my balsamic vinegar at and maple syrup. I get all 3 of those things at Costco.
Has anyone tried Chef AJ's California balsamic vinegars that she uses?
I can show anyone want me to show them where the recipes are? Website, I can show real quick. That's in my go here. Under, handouts. Yeah, right here. It's under the handouts. No oil salad dressings right here. Under handouts, and so it's a PDF file, so you can make it bigger there. And here they all are. All salad dressing recipes. I know a lot of people, you can also just use hummus and just water down the hummus a little bit. That always works too. And then some people are, like my wife is really sensitive to vinegars. She can't really do vinegar, upsets her stomach. So you can actually, on salads, you can actually just put on like fruit. So you can like put on like little mandarin oranges. You could grapes, things that are juicy, like fruit, that moistens it. Or you can be kind of like a salad or fork dipper. So, you know, even if like, let's just say, like my wife, for example, again, she can't eat the vinegary ones. And so she will, a lot of times will make a ranch or something. It's going to have a little oil in it, but she's just a fork dipper. So she just dips her fork in it and then eats the salad. And so when she's done with the salad, she maybe ate, you know, just tiny bit. And so you're not really getting much that way. But if you're someone like me, I love sauces and dressings, and I'm a kind of a glutton when it comes to that stuff. So I can't really use it. I can't use the ones with oil because that'd be a lot of oil because I use a lot of dressing. So that's why I use the 3-2-1 and the ones that are oil free. But I do fine with the vinegar. So some people don't.
I wanted to share a card I thought was funny for the class. I don't know.
Out of focus.
Yeah, do I have to go in or out? There. Okay, that's the front of the card. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, and on the inside, it says,
Closer. Just read it to us, I guess, if we can't see it.
okay, it says, whole foods are best. I recommend a whole pizza followed by a whole cake. Happy birthday.
Oh, boy. Lots of muted people laughing.
I gotta turn mine off of mute.
Got a question, Ken?
Well, it's more of a observation. Speaking of pizza, I just thought Mod Pizza was another pizza place, but it's pretty cool. I don't know if cauliflower crust is healthy enough to pay an extra $4 for, but everything else, they just pile up the veggies, and I don't put any cheese or any meat on them. I've only had 2, so but I'm pretty impressed that place makes veggies really available, and so you can go out to eat and then the other places are those Mongolian grills. There's one where the Spring Garden used to be in right by the bridges as you enter Springfield from Franklin Boulevard. And those are awesome if you want to go out to eat. Not only do you get to just have vegetables at your choosing, you get to watch somebody cook it. So you know what's going on in the kitchen.
In your
Hey,
location.
Ken, I hate to burst your bubble, but the cauliflower crust at Mon has milk and eggs in it. Did you hear that?
Yeah, but I'm not willing to spend the $4, so
Oh, okay.
I
So
don't-
don't, just eat
I-
their regular crust. It's probably safer.
that's what I do. That's a pretty good sized pizza, especially with, man, they really pile this stuff on it.
Yeah,
$10
yeah,
and it could go for 2 days.
yeah.
Good to know. Thanks for sharing, Velvet. All right. Well, maybe I'll show this video about protein, because that's something that Ken's brought up a lot of times. I think he's got it now down now, but let's watch. Where do I get my protein?
Are you considering making a switch to a more whole, plant-based dietary lifestyle, but wonder, where will I get my protein? This is one of the most common questions, so you're not alone. Contrary to popular belief, you don't need to eat meat or get your daily dose of protein. That means you do not need to eat meat, fish, fowl, eggs, and dairy products to get the protein you need. This animal product myth is based on the false belief that having a lot of animal protein is good for us. In fact, the opposite is true, because excess animal protein has contributed to many problems related to inflammation and a rise in chronic illnesses, and lacks key nutrients and fiber that support health. So first, let's start by answering your question. Where do I get my protein? Getting the protein your body needs is vital. Protein is essential to every cell and organ system in the body. The word protein comes from the Greek word protos, which means of prime importance. For generations, we've been taught that protein is important and that a well-balanced diet will supply all of our protein needs. And though this may make sense, have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what are the best sources of protein in a balanced diet? Or, more importantly, what is a balanced diet? To answer those critical nutritional questions, let's start at the very beginning and explore what protein is, and how to give your body everything it needs to protect your health and fight disease. Protein is one of the 3 macronutrients, along with fats and carbohydrates. Protein is the main building block of the human body. It makes up our bones, muscles, cartilage, skin, hair, nails, immune cells, enzymes, and even the oxygen-carrying hemoglobin in our blood. In fact, about 17% of our body is made up of protein. Protein is made up of 20 small building blocks called amino acids that combine, like beads on a string, to create different types of proteins. These different proteins that make up things like hair, skin, and nails all serve different functions based on their makeup. But when it comes to making proteins, there are 9 essential amino acids that your body cannot produce and must instead come from the foods that you eat. And the good news is that these essential amino acids can also be found in plant foods. So how much protein do you need to be healthy? According to the recommended daily allowance, RDA, the average person requires 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, and athletes have a higher need of up to 1.6 to 1.8 grams per kilogram. These are just ranges, so your actual needs may be slightly lower. For example, most women require approximately 46 grams of protein per day, whereas men often eat about 56 grams per day. At first glance, this may seem like a lot of protein. However, the truth is, most people are likely getting too much protein. Research has found that the average person today consumes between 90 to 135 grams of protein on a daily basis. In some cases, it can even be as high as 200 grams. You might think having more protein is a good thing, but excess protein is simply excess calories that inevitably get stored as fat. The extra protein is dangerous and can damage your kidneys, cause conditions like gout, leach calcium from your bones, increase inflammation, and even reduce the healthy functioning of your immune system. And here's an eye-opening fact. Consuming too much animal protein can even contribute to osteoporosis. It's true. See, when we consume excessive animal protein, including dairy products, it creates an acidic environment in our bodies. And in order to neutralize the excess acid, your body pulls calcium from your bones. Then the acid and calcium mixed gets filtered by your kidneys and later get concentrated and excreted in your urine. But don't worry, we'll talk more about this in our Dispelling the Calcium Myth video. Now, though, it's time for some protein myth busting. Myth. Ancient hunter-gatherer groups had a diet that consisted largely of animal products, and so should you. Fact. The longest lived and healthiest populations around the world share a dietary pattern that is actually 95% whole food plant-based. When researchers studied the blue zones, 5 regions of the world where people have historically lived the longest and have some of the lowest incidences of chronic disease, they saw one interesting diet trend. They all ate predominantly plant-based foods. Myth. To stay healthy, you need to get all 9 essential amino acids in a complete protein. Meat, eggs, and dairy are ideal sources. Fact. Your body is extremely intelligent and is able to acquire all of the essential amino acids it needs from the wide variety of foods you eat each day. In fact, research has shown that people who eat a well-balanced whole food plant-based diet meet or actually exceed the recommended daily requirement for protein, including all of the essential amino acids. That's because your body breaks down every protein, whether from animal or plant sources, into smaller chains or amino acids. All of these amino acids are then absorbed and used or stored for later. So if you're eating a whole food plant-based diet, you'll get all of the essential amino acids your body needs and more than enough protein. Myth. The best sources of protein for humans are from meat, fish, fowl, eggs, and dairy. Fact. This is false. You may be surprised to learn that all protein comes from plants, grass, algae, leaves, grains, and even fruit. As plants grow, they create amino acids from the soil, air, and sun. Animals of all types, from small fish to cows, then eat the plants and absorb the amino acids to grow healthy and strong. So, when you consume meat, you're getting a secondary source of protein. To cut out the protein middle creature, you can go straight to the primary source of protein, plants. Think of it this way. Large grazing animals like cows, gorillas, and elephants are all herbivores, meaning they eat only plants. Yet they are not lacking in muscle mass. Instead, they're able to grow big and strong just by eating plants. And so will you. Myth. Meat, fish, fowl, eggs, and dairy contain more protein than plant foods. Fact. The truth is, a whole plant food-based diet actually has the same amount of protein as animal-derived foods. Weird, but it's true. This chart shows a comparison of 500 calories of plant-based food versus 500 calories of animal food. Let's take a look at a comparison of diets. Surprising, isn't it? Now you know what your best source of protein really is. Let me repeat. You can get all the protein and the best form you need from plant sources. The next time you go to a restaurant and order a baked potato and veggies, or a bean bowl with brown rice, or a fresh salad with a variety of veggies, and the waiter asks, would you like some protein with that? You'll be able to explain that the potato, rice, beans, greens, and veggies are your protein. If an animal-based Western diet and a whole food plant-based diet will supply you with enough protein to stay healthy, then the next most important question to answer is, how do you want your protein packaged? If you choose plant-based protein, you'll get an all-natural source of protein that contains vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants to reduce inflammation, phytochemicals to promote healing, fiber to make you feel full, avoid constipation, break down cholesterol and estrogen, and protect against cancer. And that last one is the most important because fiber can only be found in plants. In fact, even though researchers suggest 25 to 35 grams of daily fiber, the average person consumes only 15 to 16 grams of disease-preventing fiber each day, and well below the 70 to 100 grams of fiber the longest living groups consume daily. But if you choose animal protein, you'll get your protein packed with. So you probably guessed, it's time to pass the plants, please. And if you're looking for the best sources of plant-based proteins, here they are. All of these foods can be used to make delicious meals, from soups to stews, burritos to curry vegetables, pizza, and more. And the plant protein sources that are best for you are also great for the environment. Talk about a win-win. Did you know that 10 times as much land, water, and energy are required to produce an animal-based diet compared to a plant-based diet? It's true. It takes 2 football fields of land to feed one person eating an animal-based Western diet every year. However, those same 2 football fields can feed 14 people each year on a plant-based diet. Now you know, the best source of protein is as close to nature's package as possible. Whole grains, beans and lentils, veggies, fruits, nuts, and seeds. These fiber-filled, nutrient-dense, health-protecting, disease-fighting foods provide everything we need to grow healthy and strong, no matter if you are a bookworm or a world-class athlete. So, where will you get your protein? Don't forget to say, that's the beans and greens. For more information, ask your healthcare provider or visit www.plantnutritionproject.org.
There you go. A little bit on protein there. Questions on that? Yeah, no, this video, that way it wasn't on the class website. It's actually it's not on the internet, so I got it through Plantrition. So it's just on my computer. But now that it's recorded, it'll be on the website now because you can just watch the recording of class tonight if you want to see it again. You have or you need to unmute, Ken, if you have a question.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, Marcia, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been hearing it, well, everybody, as I guess, a lot about this. It's a medical question about ABFib, like when someone gets dizzy or short of breath. How often would you have to get that for it to be considered ABFib or whatever?
Talk about atrial fibrillation or ventricular fibrillation?
AB fibrillation, like shortness of breath and dizzy. And
anytime you have atrial fibrillation, if it's new, you need to have it checked out.
Well, I don't know that I have it, but I will sometimes get short of breath doing things, or getting dizzy when I stand up or from bending over or something. Should that be checked? Or
oh yeah, absolutely. If you're ever having any shortness of breath or any symptoms like that, you should get evaluated.
Yeah, there can be a lot of problems that can occur because of atrial fibrillation or AFib. I think you were thinking maybe AFib is what you were trying to say. That's what we kind of abbreviate it to. And with AFib, I would say at least 50% of people who have AFib aren't even aware that they're in it. So if you're having any other symptoms that are concerning, whether it's like you said, the shortness of breath, or you're having lightheaded or dizzy spells, or you are you having chest pain, palpitations, a lot of people are unaware that their heart has been racing or going fast or beating irregularly. They can't tell that. Other people can tell the second they go into it. This is one of my cats. Scott's right that absolutely this needs to be checked out, and they can have you, even if you're in a normal rhythm when you see your provider, you can wear a heart monitor that can help pick up asymptomatic episodes of AFib. And it is such a common problem, especially as we get older, but it's also common when there's a lot of other medical problems that can predispose you to atrial fibrillation, being overweight, having high blood pressure, having diabetes, having sleep apnea, having heart failure, or other forms of heart disease can lead you to have AFib also. It just goes hand in hand with a lot of other problems. So
I don't have any of those except diabetes. Years ago, I started getting panic attacks, and sometimes it would be, they would just come on. So I'm associating that with that no, I don't have chest pains or anything with it, but I'm kind of getting worried. Well, do I have that? So, like a week from this last Sunday, we were picking blueberries, and I don't know if I fell, or if I actually passed out. Because I could feel myself going backwards and then I fell. But I was getting dizzy before that. But after I got up, I was fine after that. Well, after a few minutes. And so I was wondering if maybe that could be part of it. Or if it was just from the heat.
It'd be hard to
What
say.
about those TIAs, transanemic attacks? Is that, sounds like maybe that's what it was. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I had something like that, and that's what they said.
Yeah. No, I wasn't having any attack at all. Those I get shaky and can't talk and oh
If you continue to have symptoms, get it looked at.
yeah. Okay. Because I just kind of shrug it off to whatever.
Yeah, make sure you're staying hydrated and not getting overheated.
Yeah.
Check your blood pressure at home if you have a machine. Make sure it's not getting too high or too low. All those kinds of things.
Yeah. We have one of those. So they seem to be normal. Well, last time I checked. Okay. Thanks.
Any questions?
Yeah, did anybody, I think I got the wrong numbers on the protein, how much protein a person needs, because there was like men need this much, women need that much, and serious athletes and bodybuilders need this much. So did anybody get those numbers?
It was about 54 for men and 45 for females, but it's 0.8 grams per kilogram. But that's not your actual weight, but your ideal body weight. So that's the other thing that gets missed a lot. People, if you're, obese and weigh 200 pounds, but your ideal body weight's 140 pounds, you don't multiply 200, you don't figure out your weight is 200 pounds and then 0.8 grams per kilogram. It's 0.8 grams per kilogram of your ideal body weight, or what's called lean body mass is your protein requirement. But for most people, it's around 45 to 55 grams per day. But if you try to figure it out on a phone app or something like that, you'll find that it's really easy to get that many grams if you're eating a wide variety of beans and whole grains and potatoes and sweet potatoes, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, fruits and vegetables, wide variety of whole plant foods. You have no problem getting that many grams.
How much did he say for people that are serious athletes and bodybuilders?
It's actually more accurate, is about maybe 10 to 20% more. So if you're over age 65, you can probably put yourself in the same category as an athlete. You might need a little bit more, because the older we get, the harder we have time absorbing it. And so it's probably better to have just a little bit extra. So maybe we can add another 10 to 20% onto that 0.8. So you can, maybe it's 1.2, 1.3 grams per kilogram. But again, in these classes, we try to not get people to focus too much on protein, because it's just usually not an issue. And so as long as you're eating enough calories. But if you're somebody has a very low appetite and you don't eat very much food, then you want to really just make sure you're eating those foods that are extra high in protein, which is like your beans. Beans and legumes are your champions, because they have a lot of, you get more protein from eating a serving of beans than you do from a serving of spinach, for example, even though spinach is 50% protein, but beans are about 25% protein. And you're thinking, well, how does that work? Well, because the spinach is so low in calories, you're only getting about 70 calories per pound when you're eating spinach. And so to be able to get that, to get the same number of grams of protein in spinach, you have to eat 3 times as much food volume than you would with beans, because beans are about 400 calories per pound and spinach is about 70 calories per pound. So you can see how it would be easier to get more grams of protein from eating beans, even though they have percent of calories are half as much in beans than in spinach. But you would have to eat a big a big bowl this big of spinach to get the same number of grams of protein that you would get in a cup of beans, for example. So you just eat lots of beans, nuts and seeds and whole grains, and so foods that are a little bit higher in calorie density, in that 400 to 500 calories per pound, which, like if you go back to the calorie density lecture from earlier this year, back in January, in early February, you'll see that chart and where it is on the website and all that. Jeff Novick video about calorie density is on the website also under videos. But hopefully you come away thinking, oh, I don't really need to worry about, you don't really need to count how many grams of protein you get. Just need to make sure you're eating enough calories, getting enough whole plant foods, the right kinds of whole plant foods to get enough calories. But for most of us, just as long as you have a normal good appetite and you're getting out and getting exercise and got a good appetite, you're going to be getting plenty of calories and plenty of protein. Next week we're going to be talking. We have a 2-part series coming up next week on autoimmune disease, thyroid health, and arthritis. It's going to be the next 2 weeks. Then I don't know if you guys saw. I think I should show on the website here. If you guys saw, or if you get the class newsletter, the cooking class demonstration that's coming up. If you guys saw that, we go back to the website here. I'll actually have to go to, it was in the class newsletter, but I'll go to Eugene Plant-Based Providers website. And if you go to upcoming events here, you'll see, so here's our next walk on Saturday, August 26th, again at South Eugene High School track. It's gonna be at 10 o'clock in the morning instead of 11, just because it was a little hot. By the time it was actually not bad when we first started, but by the time we finished at noon, it was getting pretty hot. So we figured we'd start an hour earlier. Hopefully that'll be a little bit better, because it'll probably still be hot in August. And then this is not through Eugene Plant-Based Providers, but actually one of our new members to Eugene Plant-Based Providers. She's a dietitian. We're putting on this class here, plant-based cooking class. It's on every Sunday from at 5 o'clock from September 17th through October 8th. If you click here, you can get the actual flyer, and you can sign up for it. And it's free, and they're going to dinner will be provided. So they'll basically demonstrate how to cook dishes each of these weeks, and you'll get to taste the food. And then they're going to do a 20-minute presentation, educational presentation at the same time. So, so if you want to register, you can put in your information here, and space is limited. I think they're going to have 50 slots, and I think you can bring a guest. And so yeah, take advantage of that as well. And the link to this is in the class newsletter. If you're a subscriber to the Live Lifestyle Medicine class newsletter, but then you can also get to it through EugenePlantBasedProviders.com website. It's here, EugenePlantBasedProviders.com. Yeah, I think most of the people in the class here are already familiar with the newsletter and the Eugene Plant-Based Provider nonprofit group. But if not, your first introduction to it. Right, other questions, comments, anything? If we don't have any other questions, we can always end early. There's no rule that says we have to go all the way to 8:30. Have anything else to share? How things are going? How long changes you've made so far?
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
You too.
Scott, I listened to that whole thing about a cooking class. Will you give the information on that again, and where you go to look into signing up for it?
Yeah, well, it's on you get the class newsletter, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you just scroll, actually read the newsletter, because I even have it at the top of the newsletter that I sent out on Sunday. I had a flag there for the cooking class announcement, and then go down to the upcoming events, and you'll see it there, and it has the same link that I took you to just now is in the class newsletter. But otherwise, just go to the Eugene Plant-Based Provider website and go to the upcoming events, and it's right there.
Thank you.
Hey, you're welcome. Questions? This is all for you guys. If you have any nutrition related questions you're thinking about, or anything with lifestyle medicine, exercise, sleep health, stress reduction, social support, avoiding risky substances. I guess we talked a little bit about alcohol tonight. We've covered a few things.
Well, you got my interest on that cooking class when you said we get to eat.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was excited that they came to one of our meetings. Eugene, we have a board meeting every month with Eugene plant-based providers, and they came and presented that they wanted to. That's something they were planning to do for a long time, and then they wanted to spread it throughout the community, not just with their church members, and so it's all whole food plant-based, and I think it's just donations through their church, so it's there's no charge. Nancy,
Yeah.
you have a question?
Scott, I do have one question. Coming out of the calculations on your ideal body weight instead of the weight you might be. So I have looked and haven't been able to find what I think is a reliable way of calculating ideal body weight because of the ranges. They always give you a range. Well, do you have any suggestions for how to figure out what's your ideal weight?
Yeah, I guess I would go. That's a great question, because ideal body weight would be having a body mass index between 19.5 and 24. And so if you wanted to, so you could kind of do a mid-range. I've heard a lot of people just go with 22. So if you if you figure out what based on your height and do a BMI calculator, which you can do on your phone, on the internet, and figure out what your weight would be with a body mass index of 22. You could go down to maybe 20 even if you wanted to, but I would say a safe bet would be right at the middle of that range, which would be 22, and then see what your weight would be with a body mass index of 22, and that would be your weight that you would use to multiply. We figured out what that is in kilograms, and then it's 0.8 grams per kilogram is the minimum. And kind of keep in mind that that's factoring in basically a fail safe. And so when they do ranges like that, they actually make sure that it's enough protein to catch everybody on a bell-shaped curve. So you have a bell-shaped curve, and you don't want any outliers. You don't want anyone that's not on the curve.
Right.
And so you have to remember that that's already got the fail-safe in it. So that's why a lot of people say, probably really only need maybe 0.6 grams per kilogram. And then maybe for an athlete, maybe, 0.8 to 1. So knowing that those numbers that they give are really liberal, or conservative, however you want to look at it, because they're making sure everybody's fine. What I always fall back on is think about the time in our life we need the most protein, and that's when we're an infant, right? And so the first 6 months of life, we double in weight. And so our protein requirement in our entire life is the highest in our first 6 months of life. And what's the ideal food for a baby? It's breast milk, right? Human breast milk. And human breast milk only has 6% of their calories are protein. So only 6% of the calories in human breast milk are protein. And so really we don't need any more than 6% of our calories from protein, because that's the time we need the most protein. So as long as we're getting 6% of our calories as protein, we're fine. And so that being said, pretty much every diet you can think of that you could kind of create, any kind of balanced diet of any kind, is going to have more than 6% of the calories of protein. When you think about things like potatoes being, 8 or 9% protein, even fruits, 5 or 6% protein, potato or beans, as I said, are 25% protein. So spinach, 50% protein. So pretty much every food that you're going to eat, that's, especially if you're doing even whole food plant-based foods, everything's going to be more than 6% of the calories of protein. So when you actually do a analysis of a whole food plant-based diet, it comes out to usually about 10 to 15, sometimes even as much as 20% of the calories come from protein. It's usually about 10 to 15% of the calories are fat, and another 10 to 15 to 20% of the calories are protein, and then the other 70 to 80% of the calories are carbohydrate, if you actually look at the macronutrient distribution of a whole food plant-based diet. So yeah, that's way more than 6, right? So we're fine. So I think that's the kind of the lesson there, is that
Okay.
it's not a nutrient we need to worry about. And basically what food packages we choose is what's really important.
Yeah. Okay, super. That's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we call it a night? You're welcome. All right, well, I guess we'll end here, and hope to see you back. And Charlie will be back next week, and we'll talk about autoimmune disease, thyroid health, and arthritis. And we'll do 2 weeks on that, because that's a lot to cover. We like to group those together, and we'll do that. And then hope to see you guys next week.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah, you too.
Good night.